The twin sons of Brine4 were doing their best to melt every living thing into a puddle, and I was fairly certain I was next. The marketplace sprawled across the desert like someone had dumped every noisy corner of the galaxy into a frying pan. Traders shouted, drones hovered, creatures hissed in languages that sounded like boiling kettles. I'd only come here for fuel, cheap fuel, preferably not explosive, yet somehow I kept drifting toward the section where the cages were. Maybe it was morbid curiosity, maybe it was boredom. Maybe I'm just terrible at sticking to a plan. I was walking past a row of rusted containment pods when I felt eyes on me. Not the usual human outsider stares, those I was used to. No, this was sharper, focused, like someone assessing a potential tool or target. I turned and saw her. She stood behind energy bars, tall despite exhaustion weighing down her shoulders. Her long, elven-style ears framed a face covered in dust and bruises. But nothing could hide the way she held herself. Straight-backed, jaw set, gaze bright with a defiance so fierce it almost startled me. Beside her, two younger kin huddled together, watching everything with wide, frightened eyes. Her stare didn't waver, even when I awkwardly pointed at myself as if asking, "Me? Are you staring at me?" Then, without warning, she dropped to one knee. The movement was slow and reluctant, like it cost her something important. Her voice, when it came, wasn't weak at all. It was the kind of voice that once commanded armies. "Please, buy us, human." I blinked. What?" She looked up at me with a mixture of anger and desperation. An impressive combination I didn't know could coexist so clearly on a person's face. "You heard me. Buy us. Now. Before someone else does." "I should mention," I said carefully, "I'm not very good at buying things. Last time I bought a used plasma cooker, it exploded. Twice." The two children stared as if I were malfunctioning. The woman narrowed her eyes. "This is not the time for your human comedy routines." "Trust me," I muttered. "This is my serious mode." Her hand tightened on the children's shoulders. "You are not like the others here. You are not a slaver. You walk like someone who doesn't know where he's going. That makes you unpredictable and possibly honest." I frowned. "That's surprisingly accurate." A nearby trader, a slug-like creature with too many teeth, oozed toward us. "You interested, human? Premium stock. The tall one was a fighter once. Very valuable. Very obedient now." The woman's ears flicked sharply back in what I assumed was her species' version of wanting to stab someone. She whispered so only I could hear, "If he sells us to the collectors, we will not survive the journey. You are the only chance we have." Me. A chance. That felt incorrect. Very incorrect. But her eyes held something I couldn't walk away from. A plea from someone who clearly hated pleading. "All right," I whispered back, rubbing my temples. "But if this ends with me getting punched, stabbed, or vaporized, I'd like it noted that I was guilt-tripped into heroism." She blinked once. "What is guilt-tripped?" "It means you're very convincing." The trader clapped his slimy hands. "So you buy?" I sighed. "Yeah, I buy." He named a price that nearly made me dissolve into dust on the spot, but I paid. The energy bars flickered out, and the tall woman stepped forward slowly, as if unsure freedom was real. Her kin clung to her legs. Up close, her presence was even stronger, scarred yet dignified, exhausted yet unbroken. "I am Kalis Vera," she said, chin lifting, "former captain of the Larathi Vanguard." I tried to look appropriately impressed. "Elias Arden," I replied, "former guy who just wanted fuel." Her ears twitched. Was that amusement? Hard to tell. "You have done something reckless, Elias Arden," she said softly, "and something honorable." "Yeah," I muttered. "I have a habit of combining those." I guided them through the chaotic market toward my ship. People or things glared at us as we passed, some in envy, some in confusion, some calculating whether stealing them from me would be worth the trouble. Kalis walked close, scanning rooftops, shadows, everything. Even half-starved, she moved like a trained warrior. "You realize," I said as we climbed the ramp to my hauler, "I have no idea how to take care of kids." "They are not fragile," she replied flatly. One of the children immediately tripped and fell on my foot. Kalis didn't blink. "Usually not fragile." My ship's AI greeted us by mispronouncing my name 4 different ways. Kalis stared at the flickering hollow face with wary suspicion, then at the ship's chaotic interior, piping exposed, wiring loose, miscellaneous items I'd meant to fix last year. "This vessel," she said slowly, "is an insult to engineering." "Hey," I protested, "she flies." "Does she?" Kalis asked, stepping over a toolbox that may or may not have been sparking. I swallowed. "Most of the time." For the first time, a small, reluctant smile tugged at one corner of her lips. Something warm flickered in her eyes before exhaustion dimmed it again. As the ship lifted off and the marketplace shrank below us, Kayla sat with her kin gathered close, watching the sky as if afraid it might vanish. I didn't know who had broken her world. I didn't know what danger I'd just inherited by freeing her. But I knew one thing clearly. I hadn't bought slaves. I'd rescued people. And for reasons I didn't understand yet, Kalis Vera had chosen me. Kalis didn't say a word for the first hour after liftoff. She sat in the co-pilot seat with the stiff posture of someone who expected the universe to throw another catastrophe at her any second. Her long, elegant ears were angled sharply backward, apparently the Lyrathi equivalent of "don't talk to me unless you enjoy being vaporized." The 2 children huddled near the back of the cabin, watching the stars streak by through the viewing window like it was the first safe thing they'd seen in years. I tried to break the ice by offering her a ration bar. "It tastes like cardboard," I warned. Kalis inspected it suspiciously. "What is cardboard?" "Something we don't usually eat, but this is worse." She handed it back without ever taking a bite. "I prefer starvation to poison." "That's fair." Silence fell again, heavy but not hostile. I wasn't sure what to do with a former warrior who looked like she could kill me with a spoon, but was currently curled in my co-pilot chair like she hadn't slept in weeks. The ship rattled as we entered a weaker pocket of hyperspace, and Kalis's eyes darted to the panels, checking the readings faster than I could blink. "You understand this system?" I asked. "Enough to know your vessel requires immediate maintenance." "That's her charm." "She has no charm." I placed a hand on the console. "Ignore her, girl. He doesn't mean it." The AI flickered in confusion. "Elias, I am identifying as neutral interface. Why did you gender me?" Kalis froze. "Is it alive?" "Only on good days." That got her to exhale, just barely, in what might have been the ghost of a laugh. "Progress." The children crept forward, their small, long-eared silhouettes reflected in the cabin lights. One of them, the younger, tugged gently at Kalis's sleeve. "Is he safe?" the child whispered, pointing at me. Kalis considered the question far longer than my pride appreciated. "He is unpredictable," she finally said. "But he means well." I raised a brow. "That's the nicest insult I've ever received." The older child, Leary, Kalis had quietly told me, stood straighter and studied me with a seriousness only children who've survived too much can have. "Will you sell us?" "No," I said without hesitation. "I barely managed to buy you. I'm not organized enough to run a selling operation." Kalis shot me a sharp glare. "Be serious." "I am being serious. I lose my socks daily. I'd lose people instantly." Leary looked at Kalis again for confirmation. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. The child's shoulders loosened. Mine did too, though for different reasons. When they wandered back to the rear cabin, Kalis finally turned her attention fully to me. "You want answers. I mean, it'd be nice. Right now I know your name, your species, and the fact that you judge spaceship interiors very harshly. Your wiring is a hazard. Everything on this ship is a hazard. That explains why you survive it." I couldn't tell if that was an insult or a philosophical statement. She shifted in the chair, her posture straightening until she looked less like a drowning survivor and more like the soldier she'd once been. "My world was taken," she said quietly, "not by an invading army, not by disease, not by a disaster. It was taken by a man who does not belong to the living or the dead." Well, that raised my stress level several floors. "He calls himself the Ghost Regent. His soldiers appear out of nowhere, machines that bend gravity and light until you cannot tell where they are standing." Her jaw tightened. "Our defenses fell in a single night. Our sky burned white, not red. White like the light of a star collapsing." "That's not great," I murmured, which earned me another withering look. "You joke to hide fear. Of course I do. Fear is terrifying. Kalis looked away, her voice growing softer. Many of us died. More were taken. I escaped with these two only because our commander gave his life to cover our retreat. Her hands clenched. He told me that survival was not a retreat, that someone must live to rebuild us. She leaned back, exhaustion washing over her features. And I lived. But I did not rebuild anything. I lost my blade, my rank, my home, and I refused to bow. Until today, I said gently. Her golden eyes lifted to mine, eyes that held shame, fury, grief, and an ember of stubborn hope. Yes, she whispered, until today. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I reached into the storage drawer, pulled out a steaming cup of something vaguely edible, and handed it to her. You don't owe me an apology, I said. Just drink this. It tastes like sadness, but it helps. She took the cup reluctantly, sniffed it, and made a face. This is awful. That means it's working. Her first real laugh, quiet, breathy, unguarded, escaped before she could stop it. She pressed a hand over her mouth, almost startled by the sound. The ship jolted again, and she grabbed the seat. What was that? Spatial turbulence, I said. Totally normal. Another violent shake rattled the cabin. Is it still normal? She demanded. Yes? The AI chimed in helpfully. No. Kalis looked at me with horror. You are flying a death trap. I prefer the term adventure vessel. As the stars rippled around us and the ship groaned in protest, she leaned closer, her voice low and steady. You rescued us. That means something. So I will help keep you alive. Human. Thanks, I said. I think that's the closest you've come to calling me competent. She nodded once. Do not grow arrogant. It was not a compliment, but it felt like one. The next morning, or whatever counted as morning on a ship permanently confused about time, I woke to the sound of metal clattering, something hissing, and Kalis muttering words I assumed were Larathi curses. They sounded sharp enough to dent hull plating. When I stumbled into the engine bay, my hair pointing in 6 different directions, I found her halfway inside an access panel, her long ears flicking in irritation as wires sparked around her. Good news, I announced. I'm awake. Bad news. Everything hurts. Kalis didn't turn around. Your engine is a disgrace. A child could repair it more efficiently. That's impressive, I mumbled, considering one of those children tripped on my foot yesterday. A spark burst near her hand, and she jerked back. I lunged forward, grabbed her wrist, and pulled her away from the panel before it could bite her again. She stared at me, startled, as if she hadn't expected anyone to intervene. You will electrocute yourself, I scolded. Her chin lifted. I am a trained warrior. I survived plasma storms. I will not be defeated by wires. You say that, I said, examining her wrist, but this ship is held together by hope and bad decisions. It's more dangerous than a plasma storm. Her lips tightened in reluctant agreement. She followed me to the galley, where my unreliable food dispenser produced something that smelled like vanilla, but looked like sadness in bowl form. Kaylee stared at it in horror. This is food? Technically. Have humans declared war on their own stomachs? I shrugged. Frequently. She tried a single bite, then pushed the bowl away with a look of betrayal. I will never complain about Larathi nutrient paste again. The children entered quietly, their long ears drooping until they saw Kalis unharmed. Leary took a seat beside her, while the younger one, Rin, sat near me, eyeing the dispenser like it might attack. Sensible kid. As we ate, Kalis observed my ship with the expression of a tactician analyzing an enemy fortress. Her fingers drummed on the table. You require upgrades, she said at last. I require a lot of things, I replied. Money is one of them. Also a functioning food machine. Rin nodded vigorously at that. Kalis leaned forward, her posture shifting from exhausted refugee to commanding officer. I can assist with repairs. I am trained in field engineering. That explains why you were about to fight my engine with your bare hands. She narrowed her eyes. Do you wish for assistance or not? I do. I just enjoy having full use of your arms. She blinked, confused. Is that humor? It is. It needs improvement. We spent the next several hours working together. Or rather, I handed her tools while she fixed structural and power systems I didn't even know existed. At one point, she crawled deep inside a vent, and her muffled voice echoed back at me. Why does your ship smell like melted plastic? Because something is melting, I answered honestly. That is not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be. Despite the constant repairs, I noticed her movements becoming steadier, more confident. She was regaining pieces of herself. The warrior who'd once commanded squads. The protector who'd carried 2 children through fire. Even her ears moved differently now, more alert, less defeated. Later, as we drifted through the quiet stretch of the moth-light expanse, Kayla settled on the bench near the viewing port. The stars reflected in her golden eyes, giving her an expression I'd never seen from her. Calm. Rin climbed onto her lap and pressed their face into her chest. Kalis wrapped an arm around them instinctively. Leary, trying to appear mature, sat beside her, but Kalis pulled her close too. For a moment, their little family looked whole, protected, safe. You were a captain, I said quietly from across the cabin. Yes. Do you miss it? Her gaze stayed on the stars. I miss having people to protect. I miss knowing my purpose. After a moment, she added, soft enough that it barely reached me. And I miss the sound of my home. Our trees sang when the wind passed through them. The ghost regent silenced them forever. The weight of her words settled over us, heavy but not crushing. I sat beside her, leaving space so she didn't feel cornered. You don't have to do everything alone anymore, I offered. She turned her head, eyes narrowing slightly. You talk as if you can keep us safe. I talk like someone who's going to try. You have no training. I have enthusiasm. Enthusiasm does not stop plasma fire. I'll throw it very hard. She stared at me for a long moment, then a reluctant warmth softened her expression. Your confidence is strange, but appreciated. A soft beeping interrupted the moment. The ship's sensors blinked red. Unidentified vessel approaching, the AI announced cheerfully, as if this were great news. Kayla stiffened instantly. The Regent's scouts? I checked the readings. No, not military. Looks like a salvage ship. Do salvage crews attack? Only if you have something they want. We have nothing of value. I hesitated. Kalis caught the hesitation instantly. Elias, what did you steal? I didn't steal anything, I protested. I just owe them money. How much? Enough that they'll want to take my organs as payment. Kalis stared at me like I was an exceptionally disappointing puzzle. You rescued us while being hunted by debt collectors? Technically, they're aggressive loan enforcers. And you thought this was a good idea? I never think things through. It's part of my charm. She pressed her fingers to her forehead. We will discuss your life decisions later. So there will be a later? I said with a grin. Her ears flicked sharply. Not if you keep talking. But even as she rose to prepare for confrontation, I saw it. The faintest, smallest spark of trust threaded between us. The salvage ship drifted closer on the view screen, an ugly block of patched metal and questionable decisions. It looked like someone had welded together 3 vessels that had all previously exploded. Kayla stood beside me with her arms crossed, her long ears angled forward, alert and ready. The children hid behind the doorway, peeking out like tiny scouts in training. They're hailing us, I said, tapping the console. A grainy hologram sputtered to life, revealing a man who appeared to have lost an argument with a malfunctioning grooming robot. Greasy hair, uneven beard, a missing eyebrow. He grinned. Elias, my favorite customer. I've bought from you exactly once, I muttered, and you still owe me for it. Kalis whispered. This is the man who wants your organs? Allegedly. The man leaned closer to the holo projector. Listen, Elias, buddy, friend, owner of a ship held together by hope and duct tape. Just let us dock. We'll talk. Or you can open your airlock voluntarily. Less screaming that way. Kalis stepped forward, her voice sharpening. We are transporting children. You will not board. The man blinked. You got yourself a bodyguard with very long ears? Kalis's eyes narrowed. Do you wish to keep your remaining eyebrow? The hologram glitched as the man recoiled. Okay, calm down. Didn't know you hired a warrior. I cleared my throat. She's not hired, Kalis added. He could not afford me. She's absolutely right, I said quickly. The salvage ship shifted closer, activating its docking clamps. My vessel shuddered, and the lights flickered in protest. Kalis's hand went instinctively toward where a weapon should have been, except she didn't have one anymore. You don't have to fight, I said softly. We can outrun them. We cannot outrun anything, she replied blandly, glancing at my flickering engines. Rude. Accurate, but rude. The clamps locked on with a heavy clang. The airlock alarm blared. Kalis pushed me behind her, which would have been flattering if it hadn't been absolutely necessary. Stay with the children, she ordered. No. Elias. I said no. She stared at me, frustration tightening her jaw, but beneath it was something warmer, something reluctant, something that said my refusal meant more to her than she wanted to admit. Then the airlock hissed. Kalis didn't wait. She surged forward with a speed that made me question if she had an internal gravity mod installed. When the door slid open, the first boarder barely had time to yelp before Kalis grabbed him by the collar and introduced his head to the floor, repeatedly. I ducked under a swinging wrench and shoved another attacker back with a metal crate. Why are salvage guys always so violent? They are pirates, Kalis said between strikes. They salvage wallets. One lunged at her with a shock baton. Kalis pivoted, caught his wrist, and twisted until the baton clattered across the floor. I grabbed it, accidentally activated it, and electrocuted myself instead of the enemy. Kalis paused mid-fight to stare at me. Why? I didn't mean to. You managed to stun yourself. I'm talented, I wheezed. The remaining pirates hesitated, glancing between the furious long-eared warrior and the idiot human who apparently fought himself more effectively than others could. It created just enough confusion for the children to join in. Leary yanked a loose panel from the wall and swung it like a shield, knocking a pirate backward. Rin kicked someone's shin with impressive enthusiasm. We are not fragile, Leary declared proudly. I stand corrected, I said, ducking as Kalis flipped another pirate over her shoulder with elegant brutality, when the last attacker scrambled back into the airlock and slapped the emergency retreat button. The pirates disconnected so fast the docking clamps nearly tore off. Their ship drifted away with alarming speed. Silence settled. Kalis stood breathing hard, hair disheveled, a smear of grease across her cheek. Her long ears slowly relaxed from battle readiness to something calmer. She looked at me, then at the children, all unharmed. You fought, she said quietly. I also electrocuted myself. You still fought. There was pride in her voice, real pride. My chest warmed in a way it absolutely shouldn't have. We gathered in the main cabin afterward. I attempted to hand out celebratory rations, but Kalis confiscated them, declaring that victory should not be punished with terrible food. Instead, she cooked something from her world, a thick, aromatic stew using ingredients from my emergency supplies. I didn't know food could smell that good on this ship. When she served me a bowl, I raised my eyebrows. Is this safe? For you, probably? Comforting. Rin giggled. As we ate, Kalis sat across from me, watching the children devour their portions. A softness touched her features, something almost peaceful. Then she met my eyes. You are undisciplined, she said. Reckless. Poorly trained. I pointed my spoon at her. I feel another compliment coming. But you did not run. You did not hide. And you did not let them reach the children. Her voice lowered. For that, I trust you. Her words hit harder than any pirate could. I swallowed, trying to play it cool. So does this mean you'll stop calling my ship an insult to engineering? No, she smirked. But I will insult it less. Progress. Real, undeniable progress. I didn't realize the ship could ever feel peaceful, but a strange calm settled over us in the days after the pirate attack. Kalis repaired the scorched panels with efficient, soldierly movements. The children helped clean up the broken crates, and I pretended I knew how to tighten bolts without breaking everything further. For a brief stretch of time, we drifted through quiet space, the kind that hummed softly through the hull like a lullaby. Of course, calm never lasts with my luck. We were approaching the nebula veil, a drifting cloud of iridescent gases that shimmered like a cosmic aurora. It was beautiful until the scanners abruptly started screaming. Kalis hurried to the console, her ears angling forward sharply. That energy signature, she whispered. I know it. Please tell me it's the friendly kind, I said. Like energy that powers laundry machines. No. She tapped the readings, her expression tightening. This frequency belongs to him. My stomach dropped. Him as in the ghost regent? The one who eats civilizations for breakfast? Yes. She pointed at the glowing distortion ahead. That is one of his probes. The children froze. Even the ship's AI made a nervous beeping noise I didn't know it was capable of. Kalis pushed back from the console. We must hide. Hide where? There's nothing out here except glowing space fog. Then we use the fog. She seized the controls with sharp precision and guided the ship into the swirling veil. The nebula swallowed us whole, bathing the cockpit in shifting blues and purples. The sensors crackled with static. Outside, electric filaments flickered like spectral threads. I swallowed. This is incredibly scenic, also incredibly dangerous. I feel conflicted. Be quiet and hold the stabilizer steady, she ordered, though without her usual bite. There was tension in her voice, not panic. Tension. A soldier preparing for a battle she no longer had soldiers for. The children huddled close, and Kalis rested a protective hand on their shoulders. Her jaw set like carved stone. Elias, she said quietly, you asked earlier about my world, about what happened. You deserve to know. I said, we could wait until we're not about to die. She ignored me, which felt increasingly normal. The Ghost Regent was once one of us, she said. A Lirathi scientist gifted with the ability to manipulate quantum resonance, a rare trait. He created machines that could bend gravity, curve light, reshape matter, but he wanted more. More power, more control. So he became a villain with dramatic flair, I muttered. Her eyes flicked toward me. Your humor is ill-timed. It's always ill-timed, she continued, her voice lower. He discovered a way to resonate with the minds of the young, those with unshaped psionic potential. Children like Rin and Leary. He intended to turn them into living conduits for his machines. Our elders refused. He slaughtered them. My breath caught. I looked at the children, now clinging to her arms. He took our moon, she whispered, burned it with white fire. Those who survived fled in panic. I fought beside my commander until the last defensive tower fell. He ordered me to take the children and run. She went silent for a long moment. Only the soft hum of nebula currents filled the cockpit. I finally said, you did what he asked. Her eyes shimmered in the shifting light. But I failed to save the others. Kalis, that's not failure. You did not see their faces? No, I said gently. But I'm seeing yours. And it's the face of someone who didn't stop fighting, even when everything was already lost. Her ears lowered slightly, not in sadness, but in something like gratitude. Before she could answer, the ship jolted. Hard. The probe's metallic shape glided past the nebula's veil, a silent specter scanning the gases with narrow beams of white light. Kalis grabbed the controls. Do not move. Do not speak. Pretty sure breathing is going to be loud, I whispered. Her hand shot out and pressed over my mouth. Silence. I froze. The children froze. Even the AI froze, which was impressive, given it didn't technically breathe. A beam of pale light swept across the fog, passing just meters from the hull. My skin prickled as the probe's sensors buzzed like a distant swarm of bees. Kalis's hand was still over my mouth. I realized this fact too late, because the moment stretched, tightened, and became its own kind of silence. Her fingers were warm, steady. I was not. When the beam drifted away, Kalis finally released me, her expression guarded again. You talk too much at crucial moments. I was being stealthy. No, you were being loud in your soul. That sounds like a medical condition. The last probe beam vanished into the fog. We waited another agonizing minute before Kalis exhaled, shoulders loosening. We are safe, for now. She leaned back, visibly drained. Then she said something I never expected. You have protected them more than once. And me. Hey, I said lightly. I told you. Enthusiasm is a power. She shook her head, but her eyes softened. You hide fear with foolish words, but courage is still courage, even when wrapped in foolishness. I blinked. Was that a compliment? No, she said instantly. Her ears betrayed her by tilting faintly upward in amusement. The children laughed as the ship finally drifted deeper into the glowing nebula, leaving the Regent's probe behind. I wasn't sure where we were headed next, but one thing was becoming clear. Whatever Kalis had lost, whatever hunted her, I wasn't leaving her to face it alone. The nebula veil eventually thinned, and the familiar darkness of open space returned, calm as a deep breath after a long cry. I wished it stayed that way, but because the universe hates me personally, the calm lasted exactly 12 minutes before the sensors shrieked again. Kayla sprinted into the cockpit, her long ears snapping upright like antennae. "What now?" she demanded. I glanced at the screen. Um, a gravitational spike. Very big, very close, very unfriendly." The reading surged, distorting into jagged waves. Space rippled outside the window, as if reality itself had developed indigestion. Then, without warning, a tear opened mid-void, a shimmering fracture lined with white fire. A ship emerged. Not a pirate vessel, not a trader, not even a military cruiser. Something worse, sleek, silent, built from black alloy that bent starlight around its edges. A Ghost Regent Hunter-class frigate. Kalis's breath caught. "He found us." "No, no," I said, raising my hands as if bargaining with the universe. "We hid in a nebula. We were quiet. I didn't even snack loudly." The frigate's lights pulsed, scanning us. Kalis pushed me into the pilot's seat like a mother shoving a toddler away from a furnace. "Elias, move. Now." "I am moving." "You are moving badly." I slammed the thrusters. The ship lurched forward like a startled donkey fleeing a thunderstorm. Behind us, the Hunter-class vessel launched a swarm of small drones, floating obsidian spheres crackling with energy. Kalis's face hardened. "Shock sentries. They disable engines before capture." "Of course they do," I muttered, because why would anyone in this galaxy invent something cheerful? The first sentry shot forward. I veered hard right. It grazed our hull, sending a static pop through every light on the ship. The children squeaked and grabbed onto Kalis. "We can't outrun them forever," she said. "We must make a stand." "I'd rather make a sandwich," I muttered, wrestling with the controls. But she was right. We were boxed in. The drones closed rapidly. Kalis dashed to the weapons console. Not that it had anything impressive, just two underpowered plasma turrets and a targeting system that often confused stars for enemies. She fired. The turret spat blue pulses, hitting one of the sentries directly. It burst in a silent ripple. "Yes," I cheered. "Do not celebrate. 10 more remain." I retract my yes. Another drone locked onto us. Kayla swung the turret and blasted it apart with precise efficiency. She fought like someone born for war, even without a blade in her hand. Her ears were angled sharply back, her focus absolute. But more drones kept coming, and then, worse, the frigate's main cannon began charging. The energy signature was unmistakable. White fire. Kalis's entire body went rigid. "Elias, that is the same cannon that destroyed my moon." "Oh, great," I said weakly. "A moon killer pointed at my ship. This is fine. Everything is fine." The weapon's first pulse shot forward. I yanked the ship down. The beam skimmed just above us, leaving a trail of ghostly white afterburn across the void. Our hull alarms screamed in terror. So did I. Kalis grabbed my chair and pulled herself close enough that I could feel her breath. "We survived this. Do you hear me?" Yes, I hear you, loudly and terrifyingly." The second pulse charged. Kalis grabbed the emergency grid control and rerouted every bit of power, lights, engines, even the food dispenser, into the forward shields. The cockpit dimmed to near darkness, lit only by the glow of her determined eyes. "Brace," she ordered. "I am permanently braced." The white beam fired. It hit us dead on. The shield cracked like glass under a hammer, splintering into shimmering shards. I felt the impact through every bone, as if the universe had punched me directly in the soul. We spun out of control, alarms blaring, consoles sparking. Kayla slammed into me, then pushed herself upright, hair falling loose around her face. "We still live." "Barely," I croaked. Then something unexpected happened. The children ran to the center of the ship, stood side by side, clenched their small fists, and their eyes glowed with a soft, pale light. Not white fire, not destruction. Something gentler, resonant, like humming crystals. A wave rippled from them, silent but powerful. The remaining shock sentries suddenly faltered. Their energy cores flickered. One by one, the drones powered down and drifted lifelessly away. Kalis stared in awe. Their resonance, it matured. I blinked. So the kids just saved us with space magic? Psionics, she corrected, though her voice trembled with pride. Rare among my people, especially strong in the young. And the regent wants them because he wishes to use their power to amplify his machines 1,000-fold. Oh, I said, so he's a monster who needs to be punched. Yes. The frigate loomed ahead, cannon charging again. Kalis placed a hand on my shoulder, steady and unshakable. Elias, you are brave when you should not be, reckless when you ought to retreat. But your instincts, they are good. That might be the closest thing to a compliment you've given me. Her long ears tilted, just slightly. Then do not make me regret it. I swallowed hard, tightened my grip on the controls, and angled our battered ship toward the only narrow gap in the frigate's formation. Together, pilot, warrior, and two glowing children, we dove straight into danger, because survival wasn't enough anymore. We were fighting back. The frigate filled the view screen like a mountain drifting through the void, its black alloy drinking in starlight as if it fed on darkness itself. The charging cannon glowed white at its core, pulsing like the heartbeat of a dying star. I gripped the controls so tightly my fingers ached, but beside me Kalis stood tall, steady, a silhouette of iron will framed by floating sparks from a damaged console. Her long ears angled back, fierce, ready. We are not surviving a direct hit, I said, trying not to squeak. No, she agreed calmly, so we will not be hit. That's a very confident sentence for someone on my ship. I am borrowing confidence, she replied, placing a hand on the console. Yours. The children steadied themselves behind us, their earlier glow dimmed but still faintly shimmering. They were afraid, I could see it, but standing straight, as if copying Kalis. It made something warm twist inside me. Another pulse built inside the Regent's cannon. Elias, Kalis murmured, when I say now, dive. I can dive. Diving is my specialty. I dive emotionally all the time. She ignored me. Expected. The frigate released the beam. Now, she shouted. I threw the ship into a spiral dive so sharp the engine screamed. The white beam tore past us, grazing our hull but missing. The children stumbled, grabbed each other, stayed upright. We shot forward, slipping under the frigate like a dart sliding beneath a giant's arm. Kalis slammed a hand on the emergency access panel and ripped out 2 wires. My console flickered, then glowed. Kalis, what did you do? I activated the overload module you should have replaced 6 cycles ago. I thought it was decorative. She didn't answer. She simply nodded toward the underside of the frigate, where a circular glowing vent pulsed rhythmically. The cannon's coolant chamber, she said. If we release our overload pulse into that opening, it will force a shutdown, perhaps even cripple the cannon. Perhaps, she met my gaze. Have you ever done anything with certainty? No. Then do this. I lined up the ship. The vent grew larger, larger, dangerously close. Warnings flared everywhere. The AI muttered something that sounded like a prayer. Kalis braced herself, gripping the back of my seat. On my mark. The vent lit up, preparing another blast. Now! I hit the release. A surge of raw energy shuddered from our hull into the chamber. The entire frigate convulsed, lights flickering violently. The cannon's glow sputtered, pulsed, then collapsed inward with a thunderous implosion that rippled through space like a collapsing wave. The shock wave slammed us and sent the ship tumbling. Systems died for a breath, 2 breaths, then flickered back to life one by one. But the frigate floated dead and dark. Kalis stared through the glass, eyes wide, breath unsteady. We did it. Rin cheered. Leary grabbed Kalis's hand. I sagged back in my seat, stunned and slightly crispy around the edges. I let out a shaky laugh. So, we just took down a moon killer with enthusiasm, chaos, and a faulty engine? Kalis exhaled, a tiny smile forming. You are impossible. No, you're supposed to say, impressively impossible. She shook her head, but her ears lifted in amusement. We drifted in silence for a while, watching the frigate slowly turn in the void, powerless. It wasn't the ghost regent himself, but it was one of his hands, and now that hand was broken. After stabilizing our systems, we gathered in the cargo hold. The children clung to Kalis while she inspected them for injuries. None, thankfully. She touched their foreheads with gentle reverence, her voice warm for the first time I'd heard it. "You were brave," she said softly. "So very brave." Rin looked up at her. "Will he come again?" Kalis's expression flickered. Not fear, resolve. "Yes," she said truthfully, "but we will not run anymore." I cleared my throat. "Just to be clear, when you say we, you mean you," she said without hesitation. "Me?" I blinked. "The guy who electrocuted himself last week?" "You helped us survive," she said simply. "You helped me survive. You stayed when you could have abandoned us. You fought when you should have fled." She paused, searching my face. "You are part of this now, Elias Arden, whether you intended it or not." The warmth twisting in my chest grew fiercer. I tried to hide it with humor. "So what you're saying is, you're stuck with me." She stepped closer. Her voice softened. "Perhaps." Her long ears tilted slightly toward me, a Larathi gesture I'd come to recognize as rare, vulnerable trust. Rin tugged my sleeve. "Are you going to be our protector forever?" I froze, unsure how to answer. Kalis answered for me. "He already is." And somehow, she wasn't wrong. Later, as the ship quietly cruised away from the shattered frigate, we sat in the cockpit again. The stars stretched out before us. Endless, dangerous, beautiful. Kalis leaned back in the co-pilot seat, watching me with a thoughtful, unreadable expression. "You have changed," she said. "I have scorch marks on me." "Not that." Her voice softened. "You found something to stand for, Elias." I swallowed, looking away. Maybe I did. The children slept curled together behind us. The ship hummed with new purpose. And Kalis watched me with something gentler than admiration, stronger than gratitude, hope, for herself, for her people, and somehow, impossibly, for us. I smiled. "So, where to next?" She pointed toward the stars, toward the fragments of her scattered people, toward danger, toward rebirth. "Home," she said. And for the first time, I realized she didn't mean only hers. She meant mine too.